Welcome back. This is Richard Golson, and we're taking a look at NetLab 13, configuring a vSAN data store. And we've already created or added our necessary third ESXi host. So now what we're going to do is build a distributed switch. Before we can enable vSAN on a cluster and on the ESXi hosts, we must first construct the necessary network to carry the vSAN communication. We could use standard switches and create three, one on each host, but a better configuration is to create a distributed, for our distributed storage solution, is to create a distributed switch, which allows us to manage the switch from one panel versus having to manage three separate switches. vSAN provides this distributed storage solution, which means that each host is going to be exchanging data across a network in order to participate in the cluster. And that data that it's exchanging is both for the purpose of coordination amongst the vSAN members, but primarily to read and write back to the disks in the vSAN cluster, which is distributed across all our members. So preparing the network for installing vSAN requires certain configuration aspects. Now, a vSphere distributed switch will provide the central control of the virtual switch administration across the multiple ESXi hosts. A distributed switch also provides network features such as network I/O control that also can help us set things like quality of service levels. vSAN includes a vSphere distributed switch irrespective of the vCenter server version. So we're good to go on that. So let's go ahead and get started. So we'll go ahead and click over here on the networking object. Then we're going to right click the data center and select distributed switch, new distributed switch. So select that, right click, distributed switch, new distributed switch. In the new distributed switch panel, on the name and location step, we're going to enter the name that we will use for the distributed switch. So I'll go ahead and replace the name that's in here with the name that we will enter. And then I will click Next. On the select version step, we're verifying that 7.0 ESXi 7.0 and later is selected, and we'll click Next. Now on this configure settings step, we won't need to make any changes, but if we take a look here, we see that we're adding 4 uplinks, which will provide the possibility for 4 connections from each ESXi host to the physical network interfaces. We won't use all of those, but we will require at least 1 per ESXi server. So we're going to have more uplinks than we really need. And typically you would have multiple uplinks with multiple VM kernel ports and multiple physical network interfaces per ESXi host to ensure redundancy in network operations. So we're going to leave this alone. And note that this will create a default port group. And you can see the default port group is D port group. We'll see that pop up. We'll hit the next. So no changes there. Just make sure that we have all the settings we need. Notice the suggested next actions when we complete this, and we will be creating the new distributed port group, and then ultimately we'll add and manage the hosts. So we'll go ahead and click the finish there. And we can see down below that the distributed port group was created as well, but if I expand this a little bit, always a little bit difficult to get this and open this up, but let's take a look at what's being created here. And so we have the vSphere distributed switch, updated network I/O control, and the distributed port group was added. All of this is completed. So we're good to go here. We've completed this task, and our next task will take care of creating the distributed port group. All right, I'll see you then.